Welcome to our YouTube channel. In this video we are talking about Shah Mohammad Reza's twin sister, Ashraf Pahlavi. So before starting this video, like this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel for future updates. Ashraf Pahlavi was born on October 26, 1919, and died on January 7, 2016. She was the twin sister of Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, the last Shah of Iran, and a member of the Pahlavi dynasty. She was considered the power behind her brother, and was instrumental in the 1953 coup that overthrew Prime Minister Mohammad Mossadegh in favor of strengthening the monarchical rule of the Shah. She served her brother as a palace advisor, and was a strong advocate for women's rights. Following the Iranian Revolution in 1979, she lived in exile in France, New York, Paris, and Monte Carlo, and remained outspoken against the Iranian Islamic Republic. Ashraf Pahlavi was born in Tehran, 5 hours after her brother Mohammad Reza. Her parents were Reza Pahlavi, a military commander at the time, and Taj al-Muluk, the second of his 4 wives. She had 10 siblings and half-siblings. In the early 1930s, Ashraf Pahlavi, her older sister Shams, and their mother were among the first significant Iranian women to cease wearing the traditional veil. On January 8, 1936, she and her mother and sister played a major symbolic role in the Kashfi hijab, the abolition of the veil, which was a part of the Shah's effort to include women in public society, by participating in the graduation ceremony of the Tehran Teachers College unveiled. Ashraf Pahlavi was not permitted to attend university, and instead was married in 1937, at the age of 18, to Mirza Khan Gavam, whose family was politically allied with her father. In 1953, Ashraf Pahlavi played an important role in Operation Ajax as the one who changed Mohammad Reza Shah's mind in giving consent to the CIA and SIS to start the operation. The Shah had originally opposed the operation and for a while resisted accepting it. In early 1953, she met with CIA agents who asked her to talk to her brother since she was the only one who was able to influence him. As historian Stephen Kinzer's book All the Shah's Men recounts, Ashraf was enjoying life in French casinos and nightclubs when one of Kermit Roosevelt's best Iranian agents, Asadullah Rashidian, paid her a call. He found her reluctant, so the next day a delegation of American and British agents came to pose the invitation in stronger terms. The leader of the delegation, a senior British operative named Norman Derbyshire, had the foresight to bring a mink coat and a packet of cash. When Ashraf saw these emoluments, Derbyshire later recalled, her eyes lit up and her resistance crumbled. By her own account, Pahlavi was offered a blank check if she agreed to return to Iran from her enforced exile in France, but refused the money and returned of her own accord. Some historians argue that the coup would have occurred with or without Ashraf Pahlavi's persuasion of her brother. In an International Journal of Middle East Studies article, writer Mark Gasiorowski states that the Shah was not consulted about the decision to undertake the coup, about its manner of execution, or about the candidate chosen to replace Mossadegh, and that the coup was instead largely executed by the United States and others looking to undermine Mossadegh's leadership. Ashraf Pahlavi was a strong supporter of women's rights in Iran and the world during her brother's reign. In 1967, Pahlavi worked with the United Nations as the Iranian delegate to the Commission on Human Rights as well as the Economic and Social Council. In 1975, she was heavily involved with the International Women's Year and addressed the United Nations. Though an instrumental force in legitimizing gender reforms, her philosophy on gender was not particularly introspective. I confess that even though since childhood I had paid a price for being a woman, in terms of education and personal freedom, I had not given much thought to specific ways in which women in general were more oppressed than men. By her own account, she was a strong supporter of the rights of women to basic life necessities such as food, education, and health and was not a radical reformist. She cited chronic apathy from many governments as the underlying issue that prevented women's rights reforms from being implemented around the world. Ashraf Pahlavi's women's rights stance was called into question after the publication of her 1976 The New York Times op-ed piece, and thus Paseth International Women's Year. In a March 1976 article in The Nation, Writer Kay Boyle criticized Ashraf for her touting of International Women's Year as succeeding in widening the global vision of sisterhood, while approximately 4,000 of the princess's own sisters were political prisoners in Iran with virtually no hope of a military trial. Ashraf Pahlavi worked as an activist for human rights and equality. She was an advocate for the international spread of literacy, especially in Iran, where her brother Mohammad Reza Shah was a major proponent of the anti-illiteracy movement. She served as a member on the International Consultative Liaison Committee for Literacy. Ashraf Pahlavi was the target of an unsuccessful assassination attempt in the summer of 1977 at her summer home on the French Riviera, during which 14 bullets were fired into the side of her Rolls-Royce automobile. Her lady-in-waiting was killed, but Pahlavi left the scene unharmed. After the 1979 revolution, Ashraf Pahlavi asked David Rockefeller to support her brother Mohammad Reza's attempts to find asylum. She also attacked the US President Jimmy Carter and the United Nations Secretary-General Kurt Waldheim for not giving their support to her late brother the Shah during the start of the revolution. Ashraf Pahlavi argued that she was attacked for financial misconduct because she was engaged in the administration of various organizations. By her own account, she was of limited financial means when Mossadegh sent her into exile in Paris. However, in later years she was said to have accumulated a large fortune. She attributed her wealth to increases in the value of lands that she had inherited from her father Reza Shah and income from inherited businesses. Nevertheless, it has been purported that part of the story behind the build-up of her fortune may have been that during the Iranian industrial boom, which was driven by a surge in oil prices, Pahlavi and her son Shahram took 10% or more of a new company's stock gratis in return for ensuring the delivery of a license to operate, to import, to export, or to deal with the government. Government licenses were said to be given only to a few well-connected companies in each field. As a result, the need to get and keep a license became a cost that had to be met. In 1979, the New York Times reported that a document dated September 17, 1978 from Ashraf's office requested a transfer of $708,000 from her Bank Melli account to her account at the Union Bank of Switzerland in Geneva under the code name Sapia. In 1980, Ashraf Pahlavi wrote an article for the New York Times, in which she came out in defense of herself and her family's financial situation. In the article, she argued that her wealth was not accumulated through ill-gotten gains and attributed her fortune to inherited land, which drastically increased in value with the development of Iran and the new prosperity that was there for all. She asserted that many other Iranians profited from the sale of their own real estate, but were not accused of financial misconduct because of close ties to the clergy and Khomeini. She also defended her brother, Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, stating that, contrary to the claims made by some Khomeini supporters, the Shah did not profit from the Pahlavi Foundation. The princess wrote that she planned to fight these slanders with all my means and through whatever judicial means are available. Her brother, Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, was her closest friend. In her memoirs, she remembers looking upon him with a sense of wonder as a child, writing, "Long before we reached adulthood, his voice became the dominant one in my life." Ashraf's first marriage was to Mirza Ali Muhammad Gavam. They were married in March 1937 and divorced in 1942. Gavam was the assistant military attaché for Iran in 1941 in Washington, D.C., and the eldest son of Mirza Ibrahim Gavam. She had one son from her first marriage, Shahram Pahlavi Nia, born April 18, 1940 in Tehran. Ashraf's second marriage was to Ahmed Shafik Bey. He was the Director General of Civil Aviation and fourth son of Ahmad Shafik Pasha, the minister of the Khedivial Court of Egypt. They married in 1944 in Cairo and divorced in 1960. They had two children, Captain Shahriar Mustafa Chafik, March 15, 1945, December 7, 1979, assassinated in Paris, and Princess Azadeh Pahlavi Chafik, 1951 to 2011. Ashraf Pahlavi married a third and final time on June 5, 1960, at the Iranian embassy in Paris, to Mehdi Boushari. They had no children together, and were often separated while Pahlavi lived in exile in New York City, and Mehdi Boushari remained in Paris. Princess Ashraf Pahlavi died on January 7, 2016 in Monte Carlo at the age of 96. She had suffered from Alzheimer's disease. Her death was announced by her nephew and the imperial family's head, Reza Pahlavi, on his Facebook page. Her funeral took place on January 14, 2016 in the Cimetière de Monaco in Monaco, attended by members of the Pahlavi family, including Empress Farah Pahlavi. At the time of her death, she was the oldest living member of her family. Ashraf Pahlavi wrote 2 books in English: Faces in a Mirror, Memoirs from Exile, 1980, and Time for Truth, 1995. Additionally, she wrote 1 book in French, Jamais Résigné, 1981. Before the 1979 revolution, Pahlavi translated several books from French into Persian, including books on nursing and childcare. What do you think about this video? Do let us know down in the comments section below. If you enjoyed this video and want to hear from us again, be sure to hit that subscribe button before you go.